It's the 90s. You've just come home from a long day, you click in your copy of Sonic 2, press that power button, and what do next? Well, after blowing on the cartridge to get it to boot, you pick up one of the most iconic controllers I personally think was ever made. Here is a look at the history of the timeless Sega Megadrive control pad. In my opinion, one of the best and most nostalgic and prolific of game controllers, or gamepads as Sega would say. It feels almost perfect to hand and feels very intuitive to use. A huge move over from the soggy, basic and brick-like Sega Master System, its predecessor. There are a few variations however through the Mega Drive production run. I'm looking at the Sega branded controllers only in this video, and as all the third-party ones available, I'll be here forever. With most you have the standard D-pad and 3 buttons including A Start. Early controllers had a red lettering embossed on the ABC buttons and also red arrows on the D-pad ring. Most also had a white start button. They also tend to suffer from a weak D-pad, which was revised in later editions with improved rocker using ball bearings. As production continued, the B button also had a small nipple added for identification purposes while playing the game. And also the start button changed to red, and the ABC then moved into white letters above the trigger buttons. From the Mega Drive to the Mega Drive 2, they pretty much look the same. There were colour differences between the international models, like the Japanese one having the purple start and the American models having the Genesis logo embossed in the middle of the controller. As I'm from the UK, I'm more familiar with the Mega Drive. All variations, as I know, use the same DIN port and circuit boards for production run lifetime of the Mega Drive. Structurally, they're quite robust, and as mine have done, taken many years of button mashing and being rage quitted quite a few times too many, and have held up to time very well. Yes, they do get a bit soggy feeling after time, but just by taking them apart, giving them a good clean, using a bit of alcohol, they usually work well again. Mind you, they are mostly gummed up with eons of old food and fluff after 30 years of playing, so they've done quite well. Nowadays, they're not really that collectible, and one in the UK on eBay will go for about £15 to £20 for a rather good one. The next version I want to look at is one of my favourites. I'm not sure why, but I think it looks so cool with its red trigger buttons and red arrows on the D-ring. It's the Megafire variant from the early 90s and the mighty turbo version of the 3 button with switchable auto settings with the triggers A, B, C if you were getting fed up of mashing the buttons yourself. The start button was also moved to the D-pad side due to the inclusion of the turbo switches and was a little awkward to use. These are quite common variant and preceded the arrival of the 6-button control pad. I have noticed that this version and some of the early 3-button controllers had quite short leads compared to the later models, which are quite unhandy if you were a distance from your TV. However, if you were like me in the early 90s, I was usually on the floor with my black and white TV any inches away. I didn't get back problems then. Megafire controllers go from tired £10 all the way to past £50 for a box mint one, but ones on eBay are still readily available, if not quite as common. In the last few years of the Mega Drive came the 6-button or arcade control pad. I believe there were originally 2 types, one for the Japanese market and one for the Western. As I'm said, I'm from the UK, so I'm only used to the one with the red start button. This controller is smaller in design, does not feel as chunky as the 3-button, however it's still a joy to use. As well as the ABC buttons, or triggers, you will now have X, Y and Z, above a bit slightly smaller in size, which are used for a remote button on the top right hand side of the pad. The start button has also moved to the middle for more ergonomic use during gameplay. I never had one back in the day as they're quite expensive, but I always drooled over the brochures and wanted one so bad. Most games were not compatible with the extra buttons, as most were older by then, and the controller would revert back to a normal 3-button, but still, who did not want one of these? A similar, very close design was also used for the Sega Saturn. Proof of a good design. Prices range from about £15 to £30, but not as easy to find on eBay, but are still available if you look. The final control pad I want to look at is one I never knew existed until a few years ago, once I got into collecting the Sega Megadrive stuff. Called the Remote Arcade System, these were wireless chunkier 6-button controllers using an infrared signal with a limited arc during use. It used an infrared dock which plugs into both controller ports on the Mega Drive and 2 AAA batteries to power each controller. They feel more akin to the 3-button controller in use and size and have a nice weight with the batteries installed. They were sold separately from the Mega Drive and were quite expensive in the day, so I don't think many were originally sold. To use, I have noticed they do work at a good range, but it must be kept within the infrared cone. And I have noticed the slightest dip of the pad can cause you being pummeled in streets of range while you figure out what's going on. Also, I've found out that if you are too close to your second player, the controllers do get cross signals and tend to lead some interesting command inputs. However, a lovely part to have in any Mega Drive collection, I know it's hard to find and even rare if you want a box set. Price from a good unboxed set starts at about £80 and all the way to over £200 for a mint box set. Hardly a bargain, as you can get a Mega Drive with a few games for under £30 if you wanted, but essential if you're collecting the Mega Drive. Now I know there are more controllers available for the vulnerable Mega Drive, but as I said, to choose to stay with the original Sega sold ones. One third-party controller comes to mind is the Competition Pro, which I had when I was young back in the day. And there are many arcade sticks available from not only Sega but other manufacturers as well. But alas, perhaps another video for those, and oh, you cannot forget the 4-way splitter. This may become a future series for the Mega Drive, as I hold this classic close to my heart. I have many other peripherals and other console types in my collection to look at. So really appreciate you watching, and can please consider the like and comment and also the subscribe button. And also if I've got anything wrong, leave it in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks again guys. Bye bye.